I'd like to call together the City Council meeting for the City of Wheatridge, Colorado for December 14th, 2020. In a moment, you will see the American flag come up on the screen, and when you do, if you would stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Corey Stites.
Here.
Amanda Weaver.
Here.
Denise Hoppy.
Present.
Zachary Irvin.
Present.
Valerie Nosler-Beck.
Present.
Judy Hutchinson.
Here.
Leah Dozeman.
Here.
Thank you. Rachel Hulteen.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, all 8 members of the council are present.
Thank you very much. Let's see, our next, we have no proclamations tonight. Our next order of business is the approval of the minutes. Councilors, you have in your packet the study session notes of November the 2nd, City Council minutes of the November 9, study session notes of November 16, and special City Council minutes of November 23rd, all of 2020. Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noted 2 needed changes today and emailed those to the city clerk. One of them was the name of Carrie, who is listed as Terry in the Citizens' Right to Speak, and another one was on page 5 of the November 9th City Council meeting, where we had added to the motion. It was a condition that we had added, and in the minutes it was under a number 4. It should have been with the following condition number 1. That was clarified with the city attorney today also. So those minutes will be changed before approved.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Are there any other corrections to the minutes as they've been presented? Okay, with no further objections, we will let the minutes stand as they've been corrected by Mayor Pro Tem Hoppy. We are now at our citizens' right to speak. Citizens may speak on any matter not on the agenda for a maximum of 3 minutes under citizens' right to speak. We will be doing this through the raise your hand feature in the Zoom format, which is located at the bottom of the screen by clicking the icon participants, and then you will see the raise hand feature below. And I'm going to ask Ms. Schilling to bring our speakers into the conference. And when she does, if you would please give us your first name and your last name and your address, if you would please spell your last name also, then you will have 3 minutes to talk on any item not on the agenda. We will address agenda items when we get to them in the council packet. Is there anyone, Ms. Schilling, that has their hand raised in the Zoom format?
There is one hand raised.
Okay, and Mr. Namiach, if you please introduce yourself, give us your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Guy Namiach, Nahmich, at 3650 Ward Road here in Wheatridge. I just wanted to thank Councilperson Rachel Hulteen for contributing to the latest Gazette that is coming out tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to having another council person volunteer to write the next Council Corner column. So let me know who is interested, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Namiach. And councilors, you can all consider Mr. Namiach's invitation and contact him at your convenience. Ms. Schilling, do we have other speakers who would like to speak with their hands raised?
Yes, we do. We have Julie Stern.
Okay, Ms. Stern, if you'd please introduce yourself, and then you may have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening, Mayor Starker and members of council. My name is Julie Stern. I live at 7630 West 48th Avenue. As some of you know, in my professional life, I work to create affordable housing opportunities in our community. I was moved to speak tonight after reading some of the city's recent public messaging around efforts around homelessness in our community. I was disappointed that these messages seem to focus on homelessness as a public nuisance and describe solutions like removing trash and removing graffiti, rather than focusing on how we can help our neighbors who are experiencing housing instability or may have longer-term barriers to maintaining stable housing. Recent postings on the city's website make a point of saying that some people, quote, choose to be homeless, and that many are addicted to drugs and alcohol. This type of messaging needlessly dehumanizes a tragic circumstance that could befall many in our community. 4,000 of our neighbors in Wheatridge, more than 10% of our community, live below the poverty line. And you don't need to be living in poverty for one unexpected medical bill, one car accident that puts you out of work, to threaten your housing stability. The only solution to homelessness is to create homes for our neighbors. I'm heartened that our city has just hired a homeless navigator, and I'm hopeful that their efforts will focus on creating real and lasting support for our communities who need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Ms. Schilling, do we have other speakers with their hands raised?
No, Mr. Mayor, we do not.
Okay, is there anyone on the telephone that we should that we would like to offer to speak? I don't see any phone callers with us tonight. I don't want to miss anybody.
There's nobody calling in tonight.
Okay, thank you all very much. We will conclude our citizens' right to speak and go to our next agenda item, which is number 1. This is our consent agenda. Mr. Urban, would you please introduce the consent agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Consent agenda item 1A, resolution 59-2020, a resolution amending fiscal year 2020 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $35,000 for the city attorney legal services. Consent agenda item 1B, resolution 57-2020, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2020 equipment replacement fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $100,000 for the purpose of purchasing teleworking equipment. Consent agenda item 1C, motion to award a contract and approval of payment of $78,151 to Meridium Partners LLC of Denver, Colorado for the Bayou Ditch Pipe and Headgate Replacement Project, and approval of a contingency amount of $21,849. Consent agenda item 1D, resolution 58-2020, a resolution accepting a grant award in the amount of $25,000 for an outdoor fitness court as part of the 2021 National Fitness Campaign.
Thank you very much, Mr. Urban. Before I ask for a motion on the consent agenda, I believe that I did not see if there were any changes that council wished to make on the agenda. If there is any objection to the agenda as it's presented, please speak now, or we'll let the agenda stand. We'll let the agenda stand as presented. Mr. Urban, may I have a motion to approve consent agenda items number 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D?
I move to approve consent agenda items 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D.
Second.
And we have a motion, or we have a second, and was that Mr. Stites? Thank you. Would you, if you are in favor of the motion, would you please raise your hand so the clerk can see it, and would the clerk please tabulate the votes?
Unanimously passed, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 2. Councilmember Dozman, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an ordinance for first reading, Council Bill number 22-2020, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 4990 Parfett Street from Planned Commercial Development, PCD, to Planned Industrial Development, PID, with approval of an outline development plan, case number WZ-20-02/Axis 70 West.
Would you please read what's at issue in this?
Yes, sir. The applicant is requesting approval of a zone change from planned commercial development to planned industrial development with approval of an outline development plan for property located at 4990 Parfett Street near the northeast corner of I-70 Frontage Road North and Parfett Street. The purpose of this request is to prepare the property for the development of a large format industrial land use.
Thank you very much. This is a motion, or will be a motion for an ordinance on first reading to set the time, date, and location for the public hearing. Ms. Dozman, may I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve Council Bill number 22-2020, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 4990 Parfett Street from planned commercial development to planned industrial development with approval of an outline development plan on first reading for the sole purpose of ordering it published for a public hearing set for Monday, January 11th, 2021 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Ms. Nosler Beck. Will the clerk please poll the council? Please raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion.
Passed unanimously, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 3. Councilmember Weaver, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Council Bill number 21-2020, an ordinance approving an outline development plan, or ODP, amendment to change the sign standards on property zoned planned commercial development, PCD, and located at 7760 West 38th Avenue, case number WZ-20-07.
And if you would please read what is at issue in this case.
At issue is the applicant is requesting an ODP amendment to revise the existing sign standards, which were more restrictive than the city's regular sign code. The applicant is requesting an amendment such that the city's regular sign code applies to the subject property. This in turn would allow for installation of a new freestanding sign.
Thank you very much. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the time, date, and location for the public hearing. Councilmember Weaver, may I have a motion on this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 21-2020, an ordinance approving an outline development plan, or ODP, amendment to change the sign standards on property zoned planned commercial development, PCD, and located at 7760 West 38th Avenue. Order it published with a public hearing set for Monday, January 11th, 2021 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting, and that it take effect 15 days after publication.
Second.
I'm going to give this to Mr. Urban. We have a motion and a second. We will go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand, and would the clerk please count the votes?
Again, unanimously passed, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 4. Councilmember Hutchinson, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Council Bill number 23-2020, an ordinance repealing and reenacting section 26609 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning access to public streets and making conforming amendments. Case number ZOA 2007. The issue?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Thank you. The zoning code requires that all new development have access to public streets. It outlines several stipulations for residential and non-residential developments. Code section 26-609 discusses access requirements but does not reflect current development patterns. So the proposed amendment repeals and reenacts this section and updates cross-references. The purpose of the amendment is to provide more specificity. I've been trying to work on that word all day. Okay.
Specificity.
Thank you. Thank you. For commercial and industrial land uses, more flexibility for residential land uses, and more detailed guidance overall. The overarching goal is to ensure that access and circulation designs support logical and high-quality site design.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the time, date, and location for a public hearing. Councilmember Hutchinson, may I have a motion on this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 23-2020, an ordinance repealing and reenacting section 26609 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning access to public streets and making conforming amendments on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, January 11th, 2021 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
A second by Mr. Stites. All those in favor of the motion, would you please raise your hand, and would the clerk please tally the votes?
Motion has passed unanimously, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We'll go to agenda item number 5. Councilmember Urban, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 24-2020, an ordinance repealing and reenacting section 7-6 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning creation of a process for addressing complaints alleging campaign finance violations in city elections. At issue, recent state legislation assigns the responsibility for conducting hearings concerning alleged campaign finance violations in city elections to the city. The city's present ordinance for the conduct of hearings regarding election matters predates the state legislation and is in need of updating in light of the new state law.
Thank you very much. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the time, date, and location for a public hearing. Councilmember Urban, may I have a motion on this item?
One moment. I move to approve Council Bill number 24-2020, an ordinance of repealing and reenacting section 7-6 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning creation of a process for addressing complaints alleging campaign finance violations in the city elections on first reading, order published, public hearing set for January 25th, 2020 at 7 p.m. in a virtual meeting.
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Hoppy. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand, and will the clerk please tally the votes?
8-0, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 6. Councilmember Nosler Beck, would you please introduce this item?
Mayor, Council Bill number 25-2020, an ordinance adopting section 16-47 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning unlawful removal or defacing of notices on public property and establishing penalties for violation of the same.
And would you read at issue? Yes.
This ordinance creates a new code, section 16-47, making it a violation to remove signage, and in particular, the no trespassing signs authorized by the revised code, section 16-46.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the time, date, and location for a public hearing. Councilmember Nosler Beck, may I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve Council Bill number 25-2020, an ordinance adopting section 16-47 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning unlawful removal or defacing of notices on public property and establishing penalties for violation of the same. Order it published, set for public hearing on January 25th, 2021 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting, and that it take effect 15 days after publication.
Second.
We have a second, and I'm sorry, who was the second? Ms. Dosman?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand, and will the clerk please count the votes?
The motion has passed unanimously, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 7. Councilmember Stites, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 26-2020, an ordinance repealing, retitling, and reenacting section 16-46 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning trespass and establishing penalties for violation of the same. At issue, the purpose of this ordinance is placing on notice those who enter and remain upon the premises of another, including premises owned by private entities, public entities, or individuals that doing so without the proper license or authority, or after that license or authority has been revoked, may result in criminal activity. This ordinance amends the specific this and significantly enhances the city's current code 16-46 on trespassing, including posting of notices prohibiting trespassing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Goff, I noticed that we don't have a date set in our package for the public hearing on this item. Do we have a date that we can insert there?
They told me January 25th.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Hoppy talked to Mr. Stites earlier and told him January 25th, which I think he read into the motion.
We haven't taken the motion yet, but we're just about to.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. This is an item. This is an ordinance for first reading to set the time, date, and location for a public hearing. Councilmember Stites, may I have a motion on this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 26-2020, an ordinance repealing, retitling, and reenacting section 16-46 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning trespass and establishing penalties for violation of the same. Order published, set for public hearing January 25th, 2021 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting, and that it take effect 15 days after publication.
Second.
I think Mr. Urban had that one.
Okay.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand, and will the clerk please tally the votes?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed 8-0.
Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 8. Councilmember Hoppy, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 27-2020, an ordinance for first reading, ordinance adopting section 16-70 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning pedestrian use of roadway center medians, and in connection therewith amending section 16-113, sales and solicitation in certain places prohibited. At issue, the ordinance is intended to reduce auto pedestrian accidents by regulating center medians that are unsafe for occupation by pedestrians and other pedestrian behaviors that interfere with traffic, including entering the roadway in a way that obstructs or hinders traffic flow and soliciting in areas that are unsafe for such activity. The ordinance adopts a new section of the Wheatridge Code of Laws governing pedestrian and traffic safety and amends the current section on solicitation activities to add a legislative declaration.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the time, date, and location for the public hearing. Councilmember Hoppy, may I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve Council Bill number 27-2020, an ordinance adopting section 16-70 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning pedestrian use of roadway center medians, and in connection therewith amending section 16-113, sales and solicitation in certain places prohibited. Order it published, set for public hearing on January 25th, 2021 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting, and that it take effect 15 days after publication.
Second.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Stites. Will you please vote on this by raising your hand, and will the clerk please count the votes?
8-0, Mr. Mayor, in favor.
Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 9. Councilmember Holteen, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Council Bill number 2820, an ordinance adopting section 1669 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning pedestrian hindering the flow of traffic. At issue, the ordinance is intended to reduce auto pedestrian accidents by prohibiting actions by pedestrians that obstruct or hinder traffic, including pedestrians being physically in traffic lanes or extending objects, hands, etc. into traffic lanes. The ordinance adopts a new section of the code.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the time, date, and location for a public hearing. May I have a motion on this item, please?
I move to approve Council Bill number 28/2020, an ordinance adopting section 1669 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning pedestrians hindering the flow of traffic. Order it published, public hearing set for January 25th, 2021 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting, and that it takes effect 15 days after publication.
Second.
Second.
We have a second, and I'm sorry, who had the second on that?
Councilmember Dozeman.
Councilmember Does. I'm going to go with that. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand, and will the clerk please tally the votes?
Passed unanimously, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Looks like you got a pretty good meeting coming on the 25th, so a lot of
Mr. Mayor,
public hearings.
Mr. Mayor, we did purposely split those in half. So the first three will be on January 11th and the remaining
Oh, okay.
be on January 25th. So
Well, thank you for carefully considering our calendar. We appreciate that.
you're welcome.
We will move to agenda item number 10. Councilmember Stites, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to amend the contract for engineering consulting services for Phase 2 of Wadsworth Boulevard Improvement Project with HDR Engineering Incorporated, Denver, Colorado, for additional design fees in the amount of $220,384.34 for a total project cost of $2,804,633.32. At issue, due to increased construction and right-of-way ROW costs, the project to improve Wadsworth will be constructed in 2 phases. A contract with HDR Engineering Incorporated was originally executed in 2018 to complete the survey, design, plans, and environmental assessment for the entire corridor. A contract amendment needs to be executed to provide the funds necessary to prepare the bid package for the first phase of construction.
Thank you very much. This is going to be a motion. And Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this?
Yeah, I believe a brief one. Mr. Johnstone, our Community Development Director, will provide you a report.
Okay, Mr. Johnstone.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor and Council. For the record, I'm Ken Johnstone, Director of the city's Community Development Department. We have the next 3 items are all pertaining to the Wadsworth Improvement Project that's ongoing, and I'm going to take the first 2 of those. As City Council is aware, we remain on a very tight schedule with DRCOG to maintain our federal funding on this critical infrastructure project, which is a total of $32 million in federal funds. We need to get the Wadsworth Improvement Project out to bid no later than March 29th. We intend to far exceed that date. That's March 29th of 2021, of course, with construction then anticipated to begin in late spring, early summer of next year. In order to meet that March bidding deadline, we have 3 items that we're requesting City Council action on this evening. The first 2 are related to contract amendments for our design and right-of-way consulting team. That team is led by HDR. And the final item relates to the need for potential use of eminent domain on up to 8 additional properties, and that's item 12 on your agenda. So as I said, I'm going to cover the first 2 agenda items, 10 and 11, related to the contract amendments, and Mark Westberg, our project manager, will provide an update and a staff report on the right-of-way acquisition process. So item 10 relates to a request, as Mr. Seitz has read, for a motion from City Council to approve a contract amendment on design services in the amount of $220,000. I would just say that City Council was briefed on the overall project budget and the resulting phase construction, as was noted in the introduction back at your September 21st meeting. And this contract amendment really relates directly to that phased construction of the project. It is now necessary, based on available funds, to construct the project in phase 1 and phase 2. And what that means is that for phase 1, we need a discrete set of phase 1 construction documents, as opposed to the set of construction documents for the entire corridor. So that's a new task that we've that we need to have HDR complete in order to be able to properly go out to bid for phase one. Additionally, and we're actually excited about this, we have identified 4 bid alternate plans that may be possible if either the base bid comes in under budget or if additional funding sources become available in the near term. And as we always do, we're actively pursuing some options in those regards. Those 4 bid alternate plans also each require a discrete set of construction bid documents for specifically what is included in each of those bid alternates. So that's the other component of this contract amendment. So it's for these 2 reasons, the need for a discrete set of phase one bid documents and a discrete set of the 4 bid alternate documents, that $220,000 is requested by motion to amend the contract with HDR for design services. And I'm prepared to answer any questions on this one, and then can give you a summary on item 11 related to the right-of-way process and that contract as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, I would like to open this up to public comment. If there's any members of the public who would like to speak on this agenda item number 10, you may do so at this time. If you would please raise your hand in the Zoom format, we will call on you and bring you into the meeting. And I'm going to ask Ms. Schilling if anyone has their hand raised.
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Schilling is on, but I don't see anybody with their hand raised right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Are you, you're good?
We do have one phone caller on.
Okay. If there is anyone from the public who would like to speak on this, you may speak up now and I will bring you into the meeting. Okay, I don't see anyone from the public wishing to speak on this, so I will open the floor up to questions from council. Anyone have any questions on this item? Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So with this this additional money, will we have designs for the quote unquote phase 2 of the project ready and available when that money becomes available, or will that be an additional amount of money to design the phase 2 work?
It would be an additional amount of money to give final bid documents. I would just note that should be a fairly simple process to the extent that we do essentially have 100% design plans for the entire corridor. We're just portioning it off into the phase 1 and the phase 2. So I do think we'd need to have a separate amendment to the contract with HDR to specifically get that a discrete set of plans for phase 2.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions on this item?
Just to clarify too, Mr. Mayor, the monies are budgeted and available. This is just a contract amendment. We're not asking for more money at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no more questions, Mr. Stites, may I have a motion on this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I move to amend the contract for engineering consulting services for phase 2 of the Wadsworth Boulevard Improvement Project with HDR Engineering Incorporated, Denver, Colorado, to incorporate additional design fees in the amount of $220,382.34 for a total project cost of $2,804,633.32.
Second.
And we have a second by Ms. Hoppy. Did I get that right?
Ms. Hulteen.
Oh, Ms. Hulteen, I'm sorry. It's hard for me to figure that out. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand, and will the clerk please tally the votes?
The motion was passed unanimously, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 11. Council Member Weaver, would you please introduce this item?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a motion to amend the contract for right-of-way acquisition services for the Wadsworth Boulevard Improvement Project with HDR Engineering Incorporated, Denver, Colorado, for additional fees in the amount of $236,107 for a total project cost of $1,653,102.28, and authorize staff to increase the amount of the contract by $30,000 for each additional eminent domain proceeding.
And would you please read what is at issue in this item?
Sure. A contract with HDR Engineering Incorporated was originally executed in 2018 for right-of-way acquisition services. Due to additional tasks added to the scope of the work, including assistance with eminent domain proceedings, a contract amendment needs to be executed to provide the funds necessary to complete the right-of-way acquisitions for the Wadsworth Improvement Project. This contract amendment includes work related to 3 ongoing eminent domain proceedings and also accounts for the potential of additional eminent domain proceedings should they become necessary in the future.
Thank you very much. Mr. Johnstone, did you have a report on this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I do. And thank you for the introduction, Ms. Weaver. As stated, item 11 requests a motion to approve a contract amendment also with HDR, who is also under separate bid, our lead consultant for the right-of-way acquisition on the Wadsworth widening project. This too relates to the need to get to the finish line for the March 29th DRCOG deadline. The additional contract amount that's requested really relates to 2 factors. First, additional costs that have been incurred by HDR and their subconsultants in right-of-way acquisitions to date. There's a variety of those examples. They include such things as extensive property owner appraisals, extended negotiations, relocation expenses and negotiations. And some of those really related to the challenges in the COVID environment of kind of, re-looking at what those negotiation processes look like has been challenging, to say the least. And those costs, I think I would just point out, are very thoroughly discussed in attachment number 3 in your packet. So I'm sure you've all had a chance to look at that, but HDR has really gone in a great amount of detail to outline what those costs have been. The second component of this request is related to the use of eminent domain. At your October 12th meeting, you did authorize the potential use of eminent domain on up to 6 properties. We're pleased to report that we're currently only anticipating using that on 3 properties at this time from that list of 6. And so there were no costs for eminent domain support that were included in the base budget, not knowing at all whether that would be, zero need or extensive need for the use of eminent domain should council authorize that. So HDR has estimated that costs approximately $30,000 to support the city attorney's office in proceeding with eminent domain cases that go to trial. So that approximately $30,000 is over and above the city attorney's fees. So the base budget included in the $236,000 includes the 3 properties that are currently potentially proceeding to eminent domain. I think it's actually $87,000 of that would go towards supporting the city attorney's office in that effort. Looking forward, and this relates in part to item number 12 on your agenda, should council authorize the use of eminent domain on an additional 8 properties that we're requesting consideration of tonight, that anticipates that those would also be potentially covered by the motion, which as drafted would authorize an additional $30,000 per property should eminent domain need to be pursued on those additional properties. And again, Mark Westberg will discuss those specific properties and that list more on agenda item number 12. And with that, again, I'd be glad to take questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we go to questions of council, I'd like to open this up to comment from the public. If you're a member of the public and would like to speak on this item, you may do so now. If you would raise your hand in the Zoom format, or if you are on the telephone, please speak up and we will arrange to bring you into the meeting.
I do not see Mayor.
Okay, I'll give it one more time. Anybody on the telephone or in the Zoom format who would like to speak on this, raise your hand and we will bring you into the meeting. And still no one, Mr. Goff?
No.
Okay, we will close our public comment on this item, and I will open it up to questions from council. Anyone with a question on this one? Councilmember Weaver.
I know we're going to talk about which properties they are on the next item, but I was just curious what the 3 properties are that we're voting on for eminent domain.
Well, so you've already given authorization on a list of 6. So the 3 that are included tonight, I might need to lean on Mark for this, but it's the Munchkin property, the property where the Pep Boys is, and there's a 3rd property. I'd have to look at my notes to get that, but those have already been authorized, and that budget is therefore included.
And then Ms. Weaver, in the next item, we'll talk about the additional 8 properties that we're asking for tonight for permission.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions? Mr. Urban.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. So the total number of proceedings would be no more than 8, or what would be the total number of eminent domain proceedings that we'd be approving?
You've approved 6 to date. We only are going to need at most 3 of those because we've successfully negotiated in the interim deal terms, MOAs on 3 of those 6 properties. So up to 3 from the October 12th direction from council, that resolution. And then we're bringing to you this evening, again, a total of 8 potential needs for additional authority to use eminent domain. And again, Mark will speak to those. Those all were included in your attachments to agenda item number 12.
So that would be a total of 11 then that we would have. I'm just trying to figure out what with this allowance for $30,000 for each additional eminent domain proceeding, would that be a total of 11 properties that we would calculate that by?
It would, but again, 3 of those are included in the $236,000 budget. So the potential, and of course we would strongly hope that number of 8 would come down as we're continue to negotiate with these property owners. We're just trying to cover our bases, knowing the tight timelines that we're dealing with. But it would be a potential additional 8 at that $30,000 support level.
And in the backup, it talked about how this is on a per property basis, but in the motion, we're saying each eminent domain proceeding. So we're only expecting, or there can only be 1 proceeding per property. So the highest number of proceedings we would have in any case would be 8.
It would be 11. The 3 that are already underway and that are included in the $236,000 base bid, and then up to a potential 8 additional that would be authorized in the motion as written at a cost to HDR of $30,000.
And Mr. Westberg will talk about this in the next item, but of those 8, 6 are promising that will come to settlement. Only 2 that we're worried about. So, there's no guarantees. That's why we're asking for authority for all 8, but we hope that 6 of those will come to settlement before we need to use eminent domain. 2 of them we're worried about. So hopefully no more than 5 go into eminent domain, if even that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hoppy.
Not to dwell on this point, but I just want to bullet point clarify the beginning part of the motion that we'll hear has a budget in it of $236,107.28. That includes the 3 that are current, that have already been approved in the October meeting. Those are already included in that.
Correct.
Last half of this is that to also authorize staff to increase the amount for $30,000 for each additional eminent domain proceeding, which has a potential of 8, which is our next item, which we will discuss.
Correct.
Then also to clarify, Ms. Hoppy, as I mentioned on the last item, these monies are budgeted. We're still under budget for right-of-way acquisition. For the project, we have about $15 million budgeted. And even with this contract amendment, we should be under that 15 million. So this isn't an increase in budget. It's just a contract amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional questions on this item for staff? Okay, Councilmember Weaver, may I have a motion on agenda item number 11?
You may. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to amend the contract for right-of-way acquisition services for the Wadsworth Boulevard Improvement Project with HDR Engineering Incorporated of Denver, Colorado, for additional fees in the amount of $236,107.28 for a total project cost of $1,653,102.28, and authorize staff to increase the contract by $30,000 for each additional eminent domain proceeding.
Is there a second?
Second.
Raise your hand if you gave the second. Ms. Hoppy, okay? Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand, and would the clerk please count the votes?
The motion has passed unanimously, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, I'm
Yes.
sorry, but I
Sorry,
believe,
I voted no.
I'm sorry, who voted no?
Nosler Beck.
Ms. Nosler-Beck voted no, so it's
Apologies to Nosler Beck.
okay. So we have 7-1. Thank you very much for the clarity. We will now go to agenda item number 12. Councilmember Hoppy, would you please introduce this item?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce resolution number 60-2020, a resolution concerning the acquisition and acceptance of 8 properties on Wadsworth Boulevard for the purpose of constructing, installing, maintaining, and using public improvements for improving Wadsworth Boulevard by either negotiation and voluntary purchase, or if necessary, through the utilization of the city's power of eminent domain, and authorizing such actions as necessary to accomplish said purposes. Would you like me to read the issue or just go to staff?
Well, why don't you go ahead and read the issue? We've done the rest of them tonight, so let's go ahead and do that.
Sure. The proposed improvements to Wadsworth Boulevard require that additional right-of-way be purchased to allow for the construction of public improvements. This resolution authorizes the use of the city's power of eminent domain in order to facilitate the acquisition of right-of-way from 8 properties along Wadsworth Boulevard that have not reached consensual agreements.
Thank you. Mr. Goff, staff presentation on this item.
We do. We have Mr. Westberger, or I don't know if Ken wants to introduce, but we have Mr. Westberger and also Greg Jameson with HDR, who's been our right-of-way expert you've met before.
Okay, great. Mr. Westberg.
I've got a real quick PowerPoint, so I'll just share my screen. Hopefully that came up correctly.
It did. Well, we've got your home screen.
Do you have my PowerPoint showing?
No, I do not.
Okay. That sunset picture was outside of City Hall, just so everybody knows. That looks better.
There you go. Wadsworth improvements.
So, tonight's meeting, I've got to get it to advanced slides. Yep. Okay. So just wanted to give you a quick update on where we are status wise. We've, as you know, we've got 65 acquisitions on this project, 3 full. We've closed on 2 of those, and we've got 1 that we're still working on. And then we've got 62 partial acquisitions. 52 of those are essentially done. We've got 28 closed. We've got 28 memorandums of agreement signed, and we got 3 at various stages in the eminent domain process. So those are no longer being negotiated. Those are just going through the eminent domain process. Those were the 3 that Mr. Johnstone mentioned earlier. We have 7 that we're still working really actively on. 6 of those are still promising, and then 1 we still have 1 offer pending, as I mentioned in the council report. We have 1 at the south end where the noise wall was going to be and will be in the future. that we're still working on getting the documents on that, but it's outside of phase one, so it's not going to be an issue for us from a scheduling standpoint. 3 of those properties, sorry, I know that Patrick said 2, and when we were at the council action forum a week ago, it was 2, but we've had another one slip into the worried category, and we've had one of those worried slip into what we call the difficult category. Sorry for all the different things, but we've got nuances on where we are with all these folks. What was previously authorized on October 12th, we had 9 properties in the council action forum, and we ended up getting 3 of those resolved before the council meeting happened. So council authorized 6 properties. 2 of those have since signed agreements, and then 3 of those have been or will be filed on this month. We filed on one. We're going to file on another one this week, and then our city attorney, Joe Rivera, is working on getting the 3rd one filed before the end of the month. One of those 6 properties is still in is in the promising negotiation phase. We're hoping to get that resolved, but if we don't have it resolved by the end of the year, then in January, we'll start working on filing eminent domain process on that one, should council give us approval to do so. The new properties, the 8 new properties that were mentioned, we've got one that's in a difficult category, and we've got the deal. The deal's been done with the landowner for a really long time, for several months. But the tenant, their main tenant, is having issues with some of the things that the landowner agreed to. And they're design things that we just really, quite frankly, can't change. So we have a deal with the landowner, but we've basically reached an impasse with the tenant. And that's the one of these 8 that we're pretty certain at this point that we'll probably have to file on if we don't have a deal by the end of the year. 2 of those are in the worry category, and on those 2, we're sort of just working out conditions of what's going to be in the agreement. We pretty much have specific conditions on each property we're negotiating on, and on these 2 we're still negotiating. We think the one is gonna make it. The other one is they just sort of not. We proposed some conditions, but we just haven't heard anything in several weeks, and so we've got that one in the worry category. We're not sure if they're still mulling it over, if they're just by their silence saying no to us. But those two properties we're worried about, and those might have to be filed on. And then we've got 5 that are promising. We've virtually got deals done. You know, for instance, on one of the properties, he just doesn't want to sign the agreement until he's done relocating a sign, and he's actually in the process of doing that right now. So it's just, but we've got those 5 properties that are very promising. But if we don't have those agreements finalized by the end of the year, then we're gonna possibly start eminent domain proceedings on those outstanding properties. And we would, it takes a while to do that, which is why it costs so much, because there's a lot of time involved. And so what we'll do on those is we'll prioritize those by the ones that we seem the farthest apart on, the least likely to make an agreement, so that while we're preparing all the documents to file on those difficult and worried properties, hopefully we'll get the deals done on these promising properties in early January if we're still working on those then. So that's our plan moving forward. The reason to come to you guys tonight is we just don't have any meetings left this year, and then next January's meetings are getting just a little bit close to our deadlines that we've got in our schedule. So we're here at council on the 14th asking for eminent domain authority on 8 additional properties. On December 31st is sort of our cutoff date for when we as staff are going to say, okay, it's time to, as an old surveyor friend of mine said, it's time to fish or cut bait. We got to make a decision and just get these things done. During the month of January, we'll file on any of those outstanding properties that we have. And hopefully, again, it's only 1 or 3. Hopefully it's just 1. Our goal is to get what we call clearances from CDOT. CDOT has several specialty units, right-of-way being one of those. And what they will do is, because it's unlikely we'll have all the agreements done by February 19th, just because of some of these things that are happening. But if we've got the immediate possession hearings filed, those petitions filed, then they generally will give us that clearance. Our goal with that February 19th date to get all the CDOT clearances by is that we would then advertise for bids on March 1st. As a reminder, our deadline with Dr. Cog to get advertised is March 29th. we're shooting for 4 weeks early because we just don't know what COVID is going to do to us as we continue down this path and as cases continue to spike around the country. We would then come to council again. You would hopefully see us again on May 24th to award the construction contract for the phase 1 part of the project. And if we're, depending on how those bids come in, and if we're able to find some additional funding that we're pursuing, it'll hopefully include 1 to 4 of the bid alternatives also. So that's where we are on everything, and just open it up for questions from council. And I can stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other a little easier.
Thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, I would like to open it to the public for a comment on this matter. If you're a member of the public and like to speak on this agenda item number 12, you may do so now by raising your hand in the Zoom format or speaking up on the telephone. Is there anyone, Mr. Goff, do we see anyone with their hand up?
I do not know.
Okay, and I will ask for anyone on the telephone. If you would like to speak on this item, you may speak up now and I will bring you into the meeting. Okay, and I don't see anyone else with their hand up in the Zoom format. So we will close our citizen comment on this item and go to questions from council. With a question, and I believe Ms. Nosler-Beck, Councilwoman Nosler-Beck, please.
Hey, Mark, the difficult and worried properties, can you just match those up with the map that you've sent out to, just to explain like which one's which?
Yeah, and I can actually flash the map back up again if that's desired.
Yeah, why don't you do that, Mark?
Since it's sometimes hard to see. I didn't include it in the packet this time because last time I did that, it messed up the packet because this particular thing is so wide that everything else was all shrunk up. So this is where we are. The 3 that are in red, which is, as Ken mentioned earlier, the Munchkin property where the Liberty Tax building and several other things are, the Agua Calientes, and then the specific realty where Pet Boys is, are the 3 that are currently in the eminent domain process based on the authorizations received back on October 12th. The one that is difficult right now is actually Walgreens. The underlying property owner, Vahaska, has agreed to all the conditions and the design and everything, and Walgreens has some issues with some of the design, the changes in access that they're having. And we've talked with them about it, and they've just kind of gone radio silent with us, and we think we're showing them as difficult, but they're virtually at impasse point. We just don't think we're making any progress with Walgreens at all in trying to resolve those issues. The 2 that are worried right now is Broadstone, which is the Red Lobster. The underlying owner is Broadstone, and we sent them we've met with them on Zoom, or it might have been Google Meets or something else. I can't keep track of all the things we use these days. We met with them and it seemed like a really good meeting. We sent them a list of proposed conditions, and we just haven't heard anything from them in a really long time. I don't know if we're just not on the top of their priority list, or if they've got issues with some of those conditions. We just haven't heard anything in a while from them. The other one that's on the worried list right now is the Wilmore Center, which is kind of back behind the Midas that we bought. And there are just they've got some temporary easement conditions that we just quite frankly can't agree to. We've got some temporary easements that impact some areas of their parking lot a little bit, and they want to basically have the right to kick the contractor off of those anytime that they need that parking. And we can't do that. When the contractor needs to be there, the contractor is going to need to be there. So we're working through that with them, and hopefully we'll come to an agreement on those conditions. We've tweaked some things recently and sent those off to them, and hopefully they're gonna come back and say, oh, well, this is okay. We can live with this. And if they do, then we'll quickly take them off the worried, move them back to the promising, and hopefully just get an agreement signed with them. So those are the 3 properties that we're struggling with the most. The other ones are really just on the list right now because we're getting to the end of this, and we just need to, like I said, get to the point that we just get a decision made, and we've got to have this in hand to do. And again, we prioritize filing on the ones that are in the difficult and the worried category, and wait to file on those promising ones if they're still outstanding for later in January. But with a February 19th date try to get CDOT clearances. Once we submit for clearances, it takes CDOT a while to process that information. So we've just got to get these things all wrapped up here by pretty much the end of January to hit the dates that we need to hit.
Thanks. Can I ask one more question, Mayor?
Yes.
Mark, also, are there any that are in that, the tenant is, you just can't get a hold of the property owner?
Where the big lots and the Ross is, I think we've reached agreements with all them, and I think they've reached their tenants, and the tenants have all agreed to them also. But we haven't heard from them in a little while either. So it's one of those things. I don't know if Greg has a better update for that one, but that's the only one I can think of that's we've had a little bit of a struggle with the tenant situation.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Mr. Westberg, if I could ask you to take down your screen at this time.
I will.
Oh, thank you.
It's a pretty map, though, isn't it?
It is a very pretty map, and I hope it turns the right color.
We hope it all gets green and yellow really quickly.
Okay, additional questions from council member Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From the presentation in the packet, so this is coming before us now because we've got some deadlines that we need to stick with in order to, uphold our end of our deals. I'm assuming, but would like more information about, is this deadline that we're putting forward of if we don't get this done by the end of the year, it's going to eminent domain? Has that been communicated to all of these property owners so that they're aware that if they're not responding to us, it's pushing them closer to going into eminent domain? I mean, are they aware of the deadlines we're talking about here?
I think we've conveyed that to some of these folks. I don't know that we've conveyed it to all of them, and part of that is the ones that are really promising. We're just trying to continue in the good spirit that we've been moving forward in. After tonight's meeting, we'll certainly communicate with all of them that we really need to wrap this up by December 31st. And understanding there's some holidays and stuff in there for a lot of folks, but we need to get this wrapped up. And if we don't, then we're going to start filing for immediate possession on some of these in January. Hopefully that motivates some of these folks that are just sort of a little slow in responding, and maybe have one thing they're wanting to do before then. Some of the other ones, like the two that are sort of in the worry category, we don't know that that'll have much of an effect on them. But certainly if we file, then that suddenly it seems to get people's attention when you file for immediate possession, because now lawyers get involved and lawyers start advising them on what, I know you're fighting over this condition that you feel really strongly about, but if we end up going to an immediate possession hearing and going to evaluation trial and such, they're not going to give any conditions. They just decide on the amount and the standard agreement that CDOT has go. So hopefully we can get these resolved pretty quickly. And, we haven't always been, firm in our stance. We've given on some stuff and we've compromised on some things as we've moved down this path. So we're not playing hardball with everybody. We're just, at this point, we got to kind of play hardball with the deadline.
Mr. Jamison, were you going to say something?
I was just going to add that all of these landowners, we've provided final offers, and to most of them that we have verbal agreements for a number. We've recently provided written last and final letters, and those letters say, here's a certain period of time to work this out. If it doesn't get worked out, then we may ask City Council for condemnation authority. So, and the recent, we recently sent last and final offers to a number of these, and gave them 2 weeks, and that time frame has expired. And we told them, hey, we said, look, we've got the verbal agreement. We're working out the language. We're very constructive. We hope that this can work, but we do have this deadline hanging over our head, and we need to provide this letter. And you just need to be aware that if we can't get this done in a certain time frame, then we're going to have to go to City Council and ask for this. So I believe they've been notified from that view.
Okay, well, my question's based, on the handful that Mr. Westberg's saying is, they're just kind of not being responsive to the terms, and you're not hearing back from them. I would just hope as we're contemplating authorizing eminent domain, because we've got these deadlines, that those deadlines are being communicated to the parties as well. I mean, I spent 18 years in real estate, and I know how these negotiations can go, but you know, working with people to try and reach a resolution is great. But if we're authorizing eminent domain, I just want to make sure everyone's aware that you guys are working with that that's in play, that if you're coming to us and asking for it, I want to make sure that they know that they're being presented the same deadlines we are.
And we would never surprise anybody with this. You know, we'll, assuming you guys give us the authority tonight, we'll contact all these folks and let them know that, hey, just want to let you know that council's authorized this. We'd still like to get a deal worked out with you before the end of the year, but this is what's happening. I want to be really honest and upfront with people. I don't want to surprise anybody with you know, suddenly a petition is filed to their attorney and they're like, when did this happen? You know, so we'll make sure that we've got everyone communicated with really well.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I assumed you were. I just want to be explicit about it because this is a pretty serious issue. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I often get accused of over communicating, so.
Thank you. Additional questions for staff on this item? Okay, seeing none, let's go to a vote. Councilmember Hoppy, may I have a motion on agenda item number 12?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 60-2020, a resolution concerning the acquisition and acceptance of 8 properties on Wadsworth Boulevard for the purpose of constructing, installing, maintaining, and using public improvements for improving Wadsworth Boulevard by either negotiation and voluntary purchase, or, if necessary, through the utilization of the city's power of eminent domain, and authorizing such action as necessary to accomplish said purposes.
There's a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Stites. Is there discussion on the motion?
That was actually me.
Oh, is that Councilmember Urban? I'm sorry. We'll make Councilmember Urban have the second on that. Thank you. But still, any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand, and will the clerk please tally the votes? And all those opposed? Same sign. Thank you, and Mr. Clerk, you're on mute.
Motion has passed by a vote of 7-1, with Ms. Nosser Beck voting no.
Thank you very much. That concludes all of the items on our regular agenda. We will now go to City Manager's Matters. Mr. Goff.
I'm on mute also. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think most of you are aware that the Colorado legislature went into special session a few weeks ago and passed several bills to respond to COVID. And one of those is a small business relief program. It's going to include $57 million of direct aid and grants to struggling small businesses. So DOLA, the Department of Local Affairs, is going to administer those funds, and the funds will initially go through the county, and businesses will apply for the funds through the county unless the county chooses not to administer the program. We've spoken with Jefferson County. They're going to discuss this with their board, I believe, tomorrow, the county commissioners, and decide if they're going to administer the program themselves. If not, they will let us know. DOLA is asking the counties to make a decision by this Friday. And if not, the city can administer the program locally. So good news is that there will be some additional funding for our small businesses. It's similar to the grant program we did. I believe there's grants up to $7,000 depending on the size of your business. Some of them are smaller grants, but we'll make sure that we get this word out to our businesses. And I believe the deadline for applications to apply for funding is January 8th. So it's coming up soon. That's the deadline for the cities or the counties. So businesses will have more time after that. But good news, more additional resources for our small businesses. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney's Matters, Mr. Dahl.
Nothing tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, then we will go then to elected officials matters, and let us start with our clerk, Kirkpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If there's anyone out there tonight who's listening who's not sure how important it is to wear a mask, please think very long and hard about your neighbors, your friends, your relatives. I'm not asking you to give up your constitutional rights. I'm asking that you carefully consider the impact of your behavior on those around you, including your loved ones. And wear a mask, please. Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I don't know if we have our treasurer, Mr. Miller, with us tonight, but I don't see him, but I don't want to skip over him if he's there. It doesn't look like he made it tonight, so we will go with Council Member Nosler-Beck.
Thanks, Mayor. A couple of things. I have gotten a couple of inquiries from some constituents about the noise ordinance and just, how it applies to them. And Patrick, I know I've pinged you about at least one of those. Is there just a place I can direct people to for the new noise ordinance in terms of, what they can do if they have a complaint, or do they just go directly to code enforcement?
Yeah, code enforcement is definitely a place they can go. We do, I believe, have an FAQ on a city's website. You can direct them to the city's website, and there's an FAQ on there that explains the ordinance and what to do if you have a complaint.
Great. Thank you. And then I also just wanted to thank Julie Stern for her comments that she had during the public comment earlier. Just a reminder that those experiencing homelessness are all human beings, and they deserve the respect, and they're all part of our communities. It's important that we protect our property, but we also protect the other people in our community. So I appreciated her comments very much. And with that, also, just this is such a special season, and it's really cold outside. And so keep warm, wear your masks, and keep safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dozeman.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just say it's cold and it's snowing all the time. Make sure you're shoveling your driveways and your sidewalks, and then also make sure you guys are taking care of your neighbors. We all have senior citizens and things like that around us. So as much as we can in this holiday season, take care of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Weaver.
Tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to thank Julie Stern for her comments. She's a very thoughtful and engaged member of our community, and serves us in so many ways. And I think we always try and be careful with our language, but it's good to hear from constituents how that is received. So I really appreciate her stepping forward tonight and sharing that with us. A couple of other quick things, just a reminder to everybody: boards and commissions applications are open, and there's quite a few positions that are open for people. And I would remind anyone that even if there isn't an opening in your district for the position on the board you want, please put an application in. These positions open up throughout the year, and we frequently, those applications are held for a year. So if a position does open up, it'd be great to have a lot of candidates to look at. So I believe those applications are due by January 15th. And there's a fantastic page on our website that explains what all the boards and commissions do, and I encourage people to look and apply. And then I just want to remind everybody, there's, Christmas is coming next week, and we have a lot of great local businesses that provide just fantastic Christmas gifts, and that you can get gift cards at our restaurants. So really encouraging people. I know it's not a holiday where we want to go hustle and bustle shopping. But we can still buy great things right here in Wheatridge, and they're local. They support our neighbors, and I really encourage people to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick update on the business stabilization program. We did have 89 applicants. We had 38 restaurants and bars. We had 44 retail businesses. Then we had 7 booth renters, which are hair salons or other type of booth rental businesses. And staff notified each of the applicants last week. So they've all been notified about their award amounts, and I believe we'll have some notifications out later this week.
Thank you. Councilmember Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask Mr. Goff, how are we getting notices? So if the county doesn't end up doing this program from what we're getting from the state, how do we get those notifications out to the businesses, and where are some potential gaps?
Similar to the program that the city had for 3 different rounds, we have an email blast of businesses. I don't believe every business is on that email blast, but we've been trying to build that. And then we reach out to all of our business associations, the Wheatridge Business Association, Wheatridge Chamber, Local Works. They all send the information out to as many businesses as possible. We put it on all of our social media. Obviously talking about it here, get it in our local newspapers, the transcript and the Gazette, if the timing works. So.
Is it something that we could send, a letter? So, they obviously have, or hopefully have, a business license in Wheatridge. And so is it something that we could send a letter to the license holders for all of those businesses? Or I know that license renewals are going through email, so maybe we could use that database to send notifications. Or there were a couple of businesses in our community who have been here for quite a while who didn't hear about round 1, 2, or 3, and I'm not really sure how they got missed. And so I'm just wondering, where is that gap, and how can we fill that?
Yeah, you're correct. We do use the business license email database, I believe, and believe it or not, some businesses don't have email addresses. But if they do, they should be in the system. And I honestly, I don't know. I suppose a gap filler could be to send a letter to everybody, but you're still going to get some that throw it away. So I don't think you can always 100% fill the gap, but if you'd like us to send a letter, we could see if we could. It's a short turnaround time, I think, for these grant funds, but that's something we could do. We could send a letter out.
But if we don't have an email address for a business and we need them to renew their business license, then do we mail it to them?
Yes.
So then we know who we don't have emails for. So maybe we could send a letter to those people instead of having to send them to everybody, or?
Yeah, well, I can talk to staff and see what that would take to get a notice out.
Thank you. I just would hate for somebody to miss out again on another opportunity. I know at some point the onus does go on to the business owner. I do understand that. I just want to make sure that we're doing what we can. Thank you. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention to City Council is we are near our end of the year. We have one more study session, and this has been a full and busy year. Not only did we have all of our regular business going on, but then of course we had all of the things that we can't control that were coming into view that needed to be dealt with, what seemed like often on a very quick turnaround. And so I just want to say, you guys, I'm just really proud of us as leaders in our community, of all the hard work that we've done and all of the kind of extra crazy speedballs and curveballs that have been thrown at us this year. And I just really appreciate everybody's hard work as leaders in our community, and I appreciate the staff's hard work for the additional things that have been kind of piled onto us this year. So I just want to say thank you very much. I know for several of you this was your first year, and so it's hard to be able to compare, but you did a rocking job, an awesome job. And then because Corey didn't say it, I'm going to say it. Find it and buy it in Wheatridge.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Wood, for stealing my thunder, but I'm going to let that go. So thank you. I want to thank Julie Stern for coming and speaking to us about the homeless situation and the homeless attitude. I had another piece of correspondence this week on that subject, and the experiences of the people that are experiencing homelessness is a tragedy in our community. But these are our community members, and we need to work together to find solutions, not just what to do tonight, but how to transition people into permanent housing and help them with services. And I'm really happy that this week our new navigator has started with the city that we share with Golden and Edgewater. And I'm certainly glad to have, I believe Rebecca is her name, and glad to have her with us on the staff. And this is an issue that we're going to have to continue to work on. But it's very important in our community to be able to help these individuals, and that helps our community. So thank you very much for bringing that forward. I want to thank the folks who were able to join me for coffee last Saturday. We had some great discussion, and we'll be back with coffee with the mayor in January on the second Saturday. Getting darker and darker as the nights grow longer. So please be careful as you drive, and watch for pedestrians, particularly children that may be playing. Snow is coming and snow is here, so be careful when you drive and walk, and let's take care of one another so that we are here and have a great city when it finally warms up and we've got some springtime coming. So we will be back in study session at 6:30 next Monday night. And until then, if there's no more business to come before the council, we will stand adjourned. Thank you all so much. Good night.
Good night.